PV area.
The fog
I
has
figured.
been unusually sucked in this year.
Yeah. PV sometimes is like Santa Monica in that way, especially
It's
like in Pedro, right? In that little pokey
Yeah.
outy part. That
Yeah.
pokey outy part is often, hi.
Hi, can Charlie join?
So are you okay with a very chill pup joining us?
Of course.
Cool. Yes, yay.
Love it.
Hey, Con, before you do that, would you go in? Would you go into the oil backstock? You know, the little on the bottom shelf of the bulk
Yes.
or backstock. I got black seed oil and I meant to get castor oil.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bottle of the castor oil, not the whole big old honkin' one. And good morning, folks. So we're we're talking about a topical application today of oils that are used for stimulating hair growth, for encouraging general scalp health and kind of activation of the hair follicles. Since it's topical, I also made you some tea so that you would have something to drink as we talk. You're welcome.
I still have my vinegar, my hair vinegar we made.
And the hair vinegar is so good and thank you for bringing it up because we will talk about that. Yeah. Hey, Teresa. Good morning, Teresa. So yeah, we made that vinegar a couple of months ago using things internally. So here we're using things topically, and this is based actually on a study that came out of Scotland. So you can actually look up this study. Hey, good morning. If you search for Scotland and alopecia and essential oils, you'll get an abstract of this study will come up. And so I have a formula that's based on that. So we're going to look at, and caveat, I'm often not a fan of use of essential oils, particularly when those oils are of a plant that is in limited supply, right? So we have some essential oils are so, good morning, Charlie. Good morning, my love. Thank you so much, perfect. They use so much plant material that when we have, hi Renee, that when we're using a really large amount of plant material to make a tiny little bottle of essential oil, that's just not a sustainable practice. But when we're using plants that are abundant, sure, when we're using rosemary and lavender, thymes, things that are easy to grow a crop of and then harvest and distill, we're not going to be impacting their wild stands. We're not impacting anything except perhaps giving some farmers and distillers some work, which is nice. So I don't mind using essential oils here, but also we want to remember that because we are using aromatic plants, if you didn't want to use the essential oils, an alternative would be making an infused oil out of this. And I actually like to stack those and use both of them because, of course, the limitation of essential oils, as we've discussed before, is that they are a highly refined version of plant material, right? They represent a very narrow range of the full chemistry of the plant. And so when we have, this as a representative of thyme, this is not thyme. This is nowhere near the complexity of thyme. It's just the volatile oils of thyme. And so we don't have many of the secondary, tertiary supportive effects that we would normally see along with the plant are no longer there. And many issues of sensitivity and toxicity are increased because of the concentration. So those are the other limitations of essential oils. So we'll kind of go through those. And if you have particularly sensitive skin or you're working on a particularly just delicate and reactive person or population, using those whole plant extracts instead of the essential oils would be good. But we're going to work with the study, the formula that was based on the study, one slight modification, just so you can see kind of the results of that study there. All right, so the study is based on the use of 4 essential oils. So we're going to go into those and discuss why they would choose them. Before that, let's talk about the base oils. So whenever we're using essential oils for topical application, we're always going to put them into a base formula carrier. Because essential oils are highly concentrated and they're going to be more irritants than anything else if we put them on the skin undiluted, particularly onto the scalp undiluted. So we're always going to dilute them. In this study, the carrier oils were a combination of jojoba and grapeseed. So this is the formula, 20% jojoba, 80% jojoba, 20% grapeseed. And I think the primary reason for adding the grapeseed in there is to dilute the jojoba. Jojoba is expensive. It's costly. And so adding in another oil, especially choosing this oil, it's likely just as a diluent. There are certainly benefits to use of grapeseed oil. Terry! Oh, a long time no see. Hi, it is so good to see you. Yay, what a fun thing to see your name there.
Is jojoba a plant?
Yes, not only is jojoba a plant, but a jojoba is a plant of our desert.
Oh.
So you can drive just a couple of hours and go meet some jojoba plants.
Is it a tree?
It's a shrub.
Oh, it's a shrub.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a shrub about this size and has little nuts, little fruit. And the jojoba oil is the pressed, expelled oil of the seed of that fruit. Jojoba then is the primary therapeutic carrier in this recipe. The grapeseed, if you are going to use grapeseed as an oil, it's fine. It can be very, very great. We want to remember that grapeseed is not easy to press from a seed, right? If you go out to the desert and you grab some jojoba fruit and you take those seeds out and you squeeze them, you could likely get a pretty good amount of oil from those. If you did the same thing with grape seeds, it is unlikely that you'd get any significant amount of oil out of grape seeds, just because the concentration is very, very low. The grape seeds are an abundant resource, right? So we can use lots of it and extract them. But because the concentration of oils is not really high in grapeseed, the primary source, the primary way that we extract oil from grapeseed is by using solvents. Primarily, we use hexane. So we grind the grape seeds into a smaller particle size, soak it in hexane. The hexane is a very strong solvent. It will extract that oil. And then hexane reverts to a gas. And so we can drive off a large amount of the hexane, recapture that and reuse it as a solvent later on. However, there's always a certain amount of a residue of a solvent in there. So anytime you have grapeseed oil that you buy that does not say expeller pressed, the default extraction mode is going to be hexane extraction. If it doesn't say anything, it is definitely hexane extracted. And so there's always the concern of having hexane residue in there. So even if it's organically grown, unless it says expeller pressed, you have it. So that's just the caveat that you want to be mindful of when you are buying grapeseed oil. I would just use jojoba oil, and when I make this formula, I just use jojoba. Because the other thing that we want to be mindful of is the difference between jojoba and basically every other plant oil that can kind of sit in for grapeseed oil here. Grapeseed oil is a triglyceride. It's a triple strand structure of a fat, and so this triple strand structure is really common in plant oils. That's just the default plant oil is a triglyceride. What that means is that because it's kind of a larger structure, sort of a tripod structure, it generally tends, any triglyceride-based oils generally tend to stay on the surface of the skin because of the structure. They cannot penetrate deeply because they have that triple strand structure. They cannot. Irrespective of whether they're a dry oil, which means that they don't leave a lot of residue, as grapeseed oil is. Grapeseed is considered a dry oil because if you apply it to the skin, oftentimes in a few minutes, you're not going to feel a lot of residue there. Because it's a really small molecule, because it's absorbed into those upper layers of tissue pretty quickly, but it's not going to go deeply into the tissue. So if you need a carrier carrying therapeutic compounds more deeply into the tissue, you don't want to use a triglyceride-based oil, because you're only going to get surface activity in a triglyceride-based oil. And sometimes you want that surface activity. Sometimes that's precisely where you want your medicine to be delivered, is on the surface, in which case you absolutely want a triglyceride-based oil, right? So that's just kind of choosing the oil that you use. Now, the monoglyceride oils, so we have the triglyceride oils, the monoglyceride oils are the animal fats. So when we use tallow, when we use lard, when we use ghee, and the sebum that our body produces, the oil that our body produces, these are monoglycerides. They're single strand structures. As such, they're a narrow structure and they're able to penetrate much more deeply. And again, because the monoglycerides have a similar structure to the sebum that our body produces, it's recognized. Right? And of all of those, of the vegetable oils, the only one that is a monoglyceride form is jojoba. Every other one is a triglyceride form. So jojoba has a structure very similar to the sebum that our body produces. And so it's able to go deeply into tissue. It's able to regulate the qualities of the sebaceous glands, whether they're underactive or overactive. It kind of regulates them because it's able to go into those sebaceous glands and kind of work with those glands and say, hey, either wake up and produce more stuff like this, or hey, we have an abundance of stuff like this at the surface, maybe you can down-regulate your production, right? So we can normalize oil production by the sebaceous glands with jojoba, and that can be really beneficial for the scalp, for people who have very, very oily scalp, people who have a lot of seborrheic dermatitis, dandruff, basically, or the underlying inflammation and irritation of the scalp that causes dandruff. A lot of that is increased production of sebum. That's seborrhea, right? Rhea is heightened secretion of, right? Like diarrhea. Logorrhea, when people can't stop talking. Logos is word. Logorrhea, you're just talking, right? So seborrhea is heightened secretion of sebum, and then that combines with old dead cells from the surface of the skin, and then you have those big kind of flakes of whatever I was just talking about. Dandruff. So the way to, hold on, I see you, and let me just get this last thought out of my brain so I remember that I'm going to say it. So because jojoba is so similar in structure to sebum, when we apply it, say we have a scalp that has a lot of seborrheic dermatitis, that has a lot of dandruff in it, has a lot of maybe inflammation and irritation and reactivity of that, we put that jojoba oil on there, and that can break down the kind of the complex structure of those flakes that are made of the complex of the sebum and the dead skin cells. The jojoba oil acts as a solvent, because it is a solvent, because now we're looking at a fat, and oils are solvents for fats, right? In all of our medicine making, we're always looking at the quality of solvents, right? Whether we're using water for extraction, alcohol, oil, glycerin. Here, we can think of the jojoba oil as a solvent for dissolution of sebum on the scalp. Right? So breaking that down, dissolving it, and removing it from the surface of the scalp. It's also very good if we have kind of impacted sebaceous glands that are inhibiting hair growth there. Thank you so much for letting me say that. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask, is this similar to like scalp psoriasis flakes? Would it apply the same, or is it a little different?
A little bit different. Yeah, a little bit different. In psoriasis, what we have is increased production of skin cells as an immune response, right? And so you get those silvery kind of flakes, those psoriatic flakes are different because they are actually more the skin cells, and in fact there's a notable decrease in sebum production in those types of tissues, which is why they get so dry and flaky, because the sebaceous glands under there, the psoriasis has caused so much kind of activation of immune cells, and there's so much of that psoriatic plaque building up, that kind of silvery scaly skin, that the underlying sebaceous glands are like, to hell with this, we can't get up there, right? So here again, using jojoba oil could be very beneficial for that, right? I would maybe not use the essential oils, which we're about to go into, because you want to quiet down. This is a heightened activity of the skin, and you want to quiet down that skin. And so throwing essential oils on there would not quiet down psoriatic tissue. But the oil sure would, absolutely. So it would help, but in a different way than we're talking about. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And then kind of unrelated, is calendula part of that group, or is it separate oil?
Well, calendula is an infused oil. So calendula is a plant, right? So it's a plant that's related to like chamomile. So when we make a calendula oil, we're infusing an oil with the calendula. We take a base, a carrier oil, and we grind the herb, and then we infuse the herb. We extract the herb into the oil. So that's what calendula oil can be. And it can be in jojoba. It could be in grapeseed oil. It could be in fractionated coconut oil or olive oil or any number of other oils. Yeah, and calendula is also very, very good for that. Let me... What are your thoughts on castor oil in a scalp formula, Terry? And we also have castor oil, just for Terry. So castor oil is not an effective carrier oil. It's not an effective solvent. So if we're going to make this recipe as an infused oil, if we were going to get the herbs, which I promise we're going to talk about herbs in any moment now, if we're going to get the herbs and infuse the herbs into an oil instead of using the essential oils, we could use the jojoba oil, we could use the grapeseed oil, absolutely. We would not want to use castor oil as a carrier oil for infusion. We totally want to use it in our scalp formula, and we will, but we wouldn't want to use it in infusion only because it's so viscous. It's so thick. It's really hard for castor to be an effective solvent because the solvent has to be able to move into the plant that it's extracting. And if it's too viscous, it can't move into that. Think of like thick, sticky castor oil. Can't move into anything. It's sticky. So we don't want to use castor oil as a solvent if you were to make this with infused oils. Throwing it in afterwards, absolutely. And if you're only using this with the essential oil version, which is what we're going to be teaching today, then we're not doing any extraction. We're not relying on any of this to be solvents, except for that more arcane way that I was talking about in terms of a solvent being applied to the scalp as a therapeutic agent, right? So yeah, we could totally put castor oil in there. Now, the reason why castor oil is beneficial is because castor beans contain a unique fatty acid. So here's the thing. You go looking at oils to use for formulas like this, you will find so many oils. There are so many oils on the market, and every day they're coming out with new ones. Susan Parker, brilliant person who teaches about oils and fats. She has a book called The Power of the Seed, which is one of the best books on fatty acid chemistry and the uses of individual oils and fats, because every seed has oil in it, right? It is inherent in the qualities of a seed that it's going to have an oil in it. And so you can press those seeds and extract fatty acids, extract oils, and you're going to get therapeutic agents. And so often those seeds were part of kind of waste material of resources that we were using to make food or whatever. And so they were thrown into fodder for animals, right? We just kind of give them to cows, give them to pigs, whatever. Until people realized that, well, no, you can actually, all those raspberry seeds that we took out of the jam for all the seedless raspberry jam folks, raspberry seed has a unique fatty acid in it, which is really, really therapeutic. So they started to extract the oil, and now raspberry seed oil is one of the most expensive oils to add to skincare products because it's really, really therapeutic. So we oftentimes find new oils coming to market as people realize that this can be a resource instead of a waste product. However, there's a lot of overlap of the fatty acids there, since there's only so many fatty acids and only so many different things that oils can do. So honestly, so many of the new oils out there are basically the same chemistry as most of the other seed oils or fruit oils or nut oils. Those are kind of the three characteristics there. But not castor oil. So castor oil contains a unique fatty acid called ricinoleic acid. Ricinoleic acid. In fact, it's like over 90% ricinoleic acid is castor. Lots and lots and lots of ricinoleic acid. And ricinoleic acid, again, has a unique quality, and it's only found in castor oil. Castor is ricinus communis. So ricinoleic acid is the oleic is fat, right? This is the ricin fat, the castor fat. So ricinoleic acid is a rubefacient. A rubefacient is something that increases circulation to the surface of the skin. So when we apply castor oil to the skin, it increases circulation to the surface. It also increases kind of flow in the deeper tissues. So we'll often use castor oil packs over like the liver, over the uterus, over the kidneys, over joints, over lymphatic tissue, right? In order to stimulate lymphatic flow and blood flow and energy flow and just kind of move energy in stagnant areas and underlying tissues because of the moving, activating quality of ricinoleic acid. So when we apply ricinoleic acid to hair follicles, it stimulates those follicles. It increases kind of vitality and activity in those follicles. And that can be really beneficial in follicles that are kind of lower in vitality, lower in circulation, just kind of not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, whoa. Hi, Sandra. Yes, oh, you have her book. Oh, great, wonderful. What about using the alcohol intermediary method with castor? So you absolutely could use the alcohol intermediary method, but that doesn't change the viscosity of castor oil, right? It's just a viscous oil. It just makes it a bad solvent. But so add it in afterwards. Use the other oils for infusion and totally, absolutely use an alcohol intermediary if it is necessary. I think people do use alcohol intermediaries more often than is absolutely necessary. It's kind of become the default, and there's a whole bunch of plant chemistry where it just isn't required. And then you just have extraneous alcohol in your formula that wasn't necessary there because none of the chemistry of the plant required it. I'll see that in things like comfrey or plantain and chamomile and things like that. There's no reason for an alcohol intermediary in those. But calendula, totally, absolutely. Chaparral, yes. Things like that. Anyway, so yes, alcohol intermediary. Yes, in the belly button is such a weird phrase to see, Terry. I don't know what you mean by yes in the belly button, but I'm really, really intrigued, and I would like you to explain that comment. Yes?
So does the ricinoleic acid penetrate into the skin and actually get into the bloodstream to increase the flow?
No, but it's because it's activating that blood flow on the surface, it's kind of increasing flow underneath it.
Okay, but does it get absorbed deep or no, it stays on top?
I don't think it gets absorbed deep. There are people who would disagree with me about that. The use of castor oil packs is legendary and profound. It's a really, really great modality. But in my opinion, I think the structure of ricinoleic acid really can't penetrate that deeply. I think that the primary benefit is that activation, which is significant, but I don't think that it can penetrate. I could be wrong about that. I haven't been able to find solid information, but from what I can see, what I can glean from structures, I think that's how it works. Castor oil. So why would you apply castor oil to the belly button though? I love that. Why would you apply it to the belly button? I totally want to put castor oil in my belly button now, and I don't even know why. So, okay, so those are the oils. All right, let's talk about the essential oils that we're going to be using. There are 4 of them. Again, in this specific study, there are all sorts of plants that you could use in a formula like this. We're specifically looking at a study on alopecia, on stress, stress and autoimmune effects on scalp causing hair loss. So alopecia is generally considered to be stress and autoimmune caused hair loss in patches, sometimes to full hair loss all over the scalp. And so in this clinic in Aberdeen in Scotland, they used this formula and had really remarkable results with it. It's a very, very effective formula. I've used this for many people with very good results, people specifically with alopecia, for stimulating new hair growth by application topically. I do like to, when I make this formula, I will use the whole plants, infuse them, as we've been talking about, infuse them into the formula, and then top it off with the essential oils. It allows me to use a little bit lower amount of the essential oils, and then I do get that complex chemistry of the plant that's available there, or more complex chemistry of the plant that is available there. It is important to recognize that we're still working with oil as a solvent, and even though we're working with whole plants in extraction, oil as a solvent is one of the most limited of all of the solvents. We extract fewer compounds in oil than we do in any of the other solvents. So water, alcohol, vinegar, glycerin. What am I missing? Vinegar, honey. All of those are going to extract a wider range of constituents than oil does. Oil is really good at extracting very specific compounds. Those very specific compounds, a lot of times, are not found in a lot of the herbs that we use. So this is important because we do see a lot of hair formulas that have herbs in them that don't really make sense because the chemistry of the herbs that they're using isn't soluble in the oil, because oil has the most narrow solubility range of the chemistry. And you actually brought up a really good point with that. A couple of months ago, we did a vinegar infusion of herbs for mineral extraction, right? Vinegar is a great solvent for mineral extraction. It concentrates, preferentially extracts and concentrates minerals. So if we're wanting to take herbs to strengthen the hair, take them internally or apply them topically, and those herbs are mineral rich. So this would be like what? What herbs would we want to be putting into a formula like that? Horsetail. Horsetail, absolutely. The first one that I thought of was horsetail, yeah. What else?
Nettle?
Nettle. Second one I thought of, absolutely, nettle. Yeah, horsetail and nettle are 2 of the big ones that we'll see. Also oat straw, right?
Alfalfa?
Alfalfa absolutely would be, and even the mineral-rich plants. Yeah, nettle, sandra, exactly, yeah. So if you're doing those, then you want to, lots of nerve endings and circulation points along with the chakra in the belly button area. So you're just kind of getting that kind of activation and then kind of distribution kind of throughout the body. That's fascinating, Terry. Ooh, I love that. Abhita says, I don't know why they put castor oil in the belly button, but I've seen it like a trend found on the internet because doing that for health reasons. I'm guessing they think it's detoxing maybe. Yeah. And so we had a more complete explanation from Terry. That's very cool. I like that. And so often, Abhita, that is totally that actual answer. But we have a better answer there. So I'm talking about vinegar extraction. Hold on just a moment. So if you want minerals to apply topically to the scalp, you're not going to want an oil extraction. You're going to want a vinegar extraction or a water extraction, right? To get minerals to the scalp. Also, minerals are not the greatest thing to put in the scalp. Put them into your mouth so that they can get into the body and build tissue. Yes?
What are some of the other herbs you see in hair oils that don't make sense?
Those are kind of the big ones. It's the mineral-rich ones because minerals are so important for that. But you'll also see, ginseng added a lot in hair products. Number one, no, there is no ginseng in there because ginseng is a prohibitively expensive plant. And it is likely they did not source that ginseng really carefully if they're throwing ginseng in their stupid shampoo. So there's likely not any ginseng in there. And if there is, then it's even worse because they're taking a plant that is really an over-harvested, really kind of traumatized plant. We've put that plant through just a whole lot, and then they're putting it into formulas. It's stupid.
The vinegar
But yeah,
has a therapeutic effect on its own.
Absolutely, and that's a really important part of that, and I want to reiterate that for the recording. The vinegar has therapeutic effects on its own. Dropping the pH of the scalp is also, or all of the skin, is also really, really helpful. So yes, absolutely. Okay, back to the oil. So we are going to make an extract of 4 oils. We have rosemary and lavender and cedarwood and thyme. These are the 4 oils that were used in this clinical study. I'm going to pass around some essential oils so you can just kind of get a sense. You know what most of these are. There's one of them that I do want to talk about specifically. So this is rosemary. Don't put it on your nose, or do. So rosemary stimulates circulation, right? Rosemary gets blood flow to the scalp. It's one of the other primary plants that we do often see associated with hair growth. And it's a very, very good one because, again, you're just getting that blood flow, getting that circulation. Other therapeutic effects of rosemary, but topically, primarily, that's what we are looking at there. Oh, look at that dog. Oh, you beauty. Oh, you're also a little cutie pie beauty. It's big. Pure white, shaggy, big. Oh, look at you, baby. Oh, you're so pretty. You belong in like an alpine snowscape. And then your little scruffy friend. Adorable. Oh my God, adorable. So rosemary is one of them. Lavender is another one. You know what lavender oil smells like, but hey, we're using smelly things. I'll pass it this way so you don't have to get up. I don't care about you getting up, so Charlie doesn't have to get up. So lavender, cedar. Now, when we're working with cedar essential oils, there are so many plants that are called cedar. Cedar is one of the most widely used words in botany and often misapplied words. So cedar wood is what was used in this recipe, and that is Cedrus atlantica, the Atlas cedar. Some cedars can be really irritating. Some cedars are junipers. Some, yeah, they're all over the place. So you do want to use cedar wood. Atlas cedar wood is considered to be the best one for this. Now, thyme is the 4th oil, and I want to point out a really important issue with thyme. So thyme and related plants, so thyme and oregano. I'll primarily just kind of combine thyme and oregano for this, but also, you know, other members of the Lamiaceae family with that flavor profile, right, contain some compounds. Thymol and carvacrol, in particular, thymol and carvacrol. Before Teresa tells me, I'm going to change this so that you can see it. There we go. Thymol and carvacrol are 2 of the very strong antifungal, antimicrobial agents in these essential oils. So we see it in oregano oil, we see it in thyme oil, and in smaller amounts in other oils. Thymol in particular is a very strongly antimicrobial. It will kill a wide range of stuff. It is also very heating and very irritating to skin tissue. And so generally with thymol, rich thyme plants, we don't want to use them on the scalp. We don't want to use them on the skin in general. We want to use them in like environmental applications, but not in skin applications. It's not appropriate to use a thymol-rich thyme. And so what we see in essential oils often is what are called cultivars. So cultivars of plants are plants that have qualities selected where we have a specific compound that we've been selecting for that is increased, right? So this is a thymol-rich thyme. Formerly, this used to be known as red thyme. So in older literature, essential oil literature, you'll often see reference to red thyme and white thyme. And what that translates to in more modern terminology is the thymol cultivar is red thyme. And so this is primarily used, again, in environmental purposes where we're not touching the body. Now the other cultivar is of a third compound called linalool. So the linalool-rich cultivar of thymol has a higher amount of linalool in it. And linalool is a compound that we see in high concentrations in lavender. Right? So the linalool thyme cultivar is the one that we can use topically on the skin. Oh, I hope everyone's okay. Okay. So if you're going to be using it on the skin, if you're going to be using it in a formula like this, it is very important that your thyme oil that you're using is, if it's older terminology, it's going to be white thyme. If it's newer terminology, it's going to be the linalool cultivar of thyme. And this is the linalool cultivar, and you can smell less of that medicinal smell and more of sort of a lavender sweetness in that one. I'm going to put that one away so none of you are tempted to say, Julie, you're not the boss of me. I'm totally going to add in some of that.
Culinary thyme is like in my garden. Is that?
If you are going to be infusing it, you go ahead and use whatever thyme you want because you're not getting the concentration that you would get if you were putting the thymol cultivar essential oil in there.
But what
So yeah.
kind is probably growing in my garden? Or how can you tell the difference?
There are so many cultivars of thyme. Thyme is one of the most hybridized herbs we have. There's like coconut thyme and lime thyme and tangerine thyme and mother of thyme and woolly thyme and cretin thyme and oh my God, there's so many thymes, right? There are so many. It's just a plant that invites experimentation. So I have no idea what the hell is in your garden.
You kind of tell by smell.
You can tell by smell, absolutely, yeah. So, and if you just bought thyme at the nursery,
Yeah.
it's probably, Thymus vulgaris, just common thyme, which is neither of these. These are cultivars. These are selected to be higher in those. Yours isn't a selection. It's just thyme. So it's going to have a nice balance of all of this stuff with no extreme concentration of any of those compounds, making it safer to use. Yeah. Also, you're just not distilling those compounds. Yeah. All right. So those are the players in our formula. We've got our essential oils. We've got our carrier oils. Now, when we're putting essential oils into a formula, we want to be really mindful of concentration. So the concentration of essential oils, really, really important. We're considering where we're putting it. We're putting on the scalp. We're putting on the head. There may be a lot of irritation, reactivity. So generally, essential oils we are going to apply in concentrations ranging from 1 to 3%. 1 to 3% of the total volume of the liquid will be the essential oils. So if we consider that in 1 milliliter of oil, in 1 milliliter of anything, there is about 30 drops. We're going to use drops measurements for this, and we recognize that drops are a bad form of measurement. They're bad because there's a lot of variation in a drop, right? So we can vary the size of a droplet by the size of the opening, by the viscosity of the oil, by the firmness of our hand when we're shaking it, whether we're doing this or just letting it drop. Our height above sea level will also change the size of a droplet. There are so many factors that change the size of a droplet. It's an inaccurate measurement. However, when you're making a small amount of something, it's fine. Don't obsess over this. But if you're making larger volumes of something, number one, you don't want to be counting out your drops. And number two, you'll see that the higher you go in your measurements, the less accurate this conversion is, right? So up to a certain point, this is really, really helpful. After that, just measure in mils. So 1 mil is approximately 30 drops. If you measure out 30 drops, it'll be somewhere around 1 mil. So if we think about that, if we have a 30 mil bottle, right, 30 milliliters would be 900 drops, right? 30 times 30 is 900. So if we're looking at a 1% dilution in 1 ounce, 30 milliliters equals 1 ounce, okay? 1 ounce or 30 milliliters. If we take 900 drops, then what is a 1% dilution in 30 milliliters? Is anyone awake? Yep, 9 drops. So 9 drops is a 1% dilution. We use 1% dilutions on oils that are particularly strong, on tissue that's particularly sensitive, or when we are covering a very wide swath of tissue. If we're doing a whole body massage oil, because the increased surface area, we can drop the concentration down, right? Because we have increased absorption because of the surface area. So we would go with a 1% dilution. Or if we're working with a sensitive population, if we're working with children or elders, or if you're working with an oil that is very strong, like oregano oil or cinnamon oil, something like that. 1% dilution. 2% is more kind of a general range, your standard oils. And 3% is going to be a higher concentration. 3% is more for localized. If you're making massage oil, that's just going to be for a specific area. You're not applying it to the whole body. You're just applying it to your shoulder because you have an injury there, right? Or you're looking to increase circulation in this area. So you can increase that concentration because you're decreasing the surface area, right? Or we might be using just a safe herb. You're making a lavender extract, right? 3% is fine, right? So anywhere from 1 to 3%, most aromatherapists say that there's generally no need to go over 3%. We oftentimes do, and I will for environmental things. If I'm making something to spray into the air or onto a surface, you can go up to like 5% with that. But generally for skin application, so 3 is at 27 drops. So these are per ounce. So 27 drops per ounce, 18 drops per ounce, and 9 drops per ounce would be 1, 2, and 3% dilution.
If you're using an oil that is, some essential oils are so expensive that they dilute them.
Yeah.
Like jojoba oil, do you then increase the drops, or do you just usually still go with?
It depends. If you are, so oftentimes like rose is like that. I have a rose that's a 5% dilution. That means 95% of that tiny little bottle is jojoba oil. So if I was going to actually put 9 drops, I'd be throwing that whole $35 bottle of oil in there.
Right.
Right. So no, generally I will use it. If it is diluted, I recognize that the reason for the dilution is that's a precious oil. And I'm going to treat it still as a precious oil. Unless I just want to be profligate with it and just go all out and go, yeah, what the hell? I'm just going to throw all of that in there. We had a really cool group here in the early 2000s. This little punk teenager after school group. They were adorable. I loved them so much. At this community garden right on Pacific, that they had this little house there, and so all these punk kids would come and hang out there and just hang out and do stuff. And they made vegan stuff. They were all vegan punk kids, so cute. And so I would go and do little classes there for them, and I was doing a class on making salves, and I had some rose and sandalwood oil, and I thought, you know, rose oil, it's just so precious. It's a hard life, you know. It's nice for them to just get some real rose oil. And so I was talking about how precious it was, making this blend, and I'm talking, and I turn over the rose oil to pour it in, thinking that I have an orifice reducer, the little dropper top on there. I had taken the orifice reducer out, and so when I did this, all of the rose oil in the whole bottle went thoink into the thing. So I thought I was going to do just a few precious drops for you little precious kids. That's what we have now. What we have is a gorgeous rose thing, and it is done, and there is no going back from that. So, okay, we're just going to just be like super happy, and we had fun. We had a lot of fun with this beautiful rose oil. Anyway.
Will it say if it's delivered? Does it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you have to look at the ingredients, but it'll say it in the ingredients.
Good ones will say it right on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll often, yeah, they should really tell you that it's a dilution, because it's unfair to, you know, hide it too much. They don't want to say big letters, but it should be like right there if you're looking for it. You should be able to
You
see
can
it.
also tell by the cost.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. Sometimes
Yeah.
when they're too inexpensive, you're like,
Yeah.
With rose, I said, you know, my whole $35 bottle of rose, $35 is ridiculously inexpensive for rose oil, even though it's very, very expensive if it were like lavender oil. Yeah, so yeah, they should be hundreds of dollars, and they're not. It's either synthetic or it is very, very strongly diluted. All right, so we'll go with the 2% dilution then with this formula. So you're gonna put 18 drops in 30 mils. Now I have 15 mil bottles for you folks. So you have 15 mils. So how many drops are you gonna put of your oils?
6.
We're doing a 2% dilution. And it's half the size. Instead of 30 mils, it's 15 mils.
And
9. Yeah. So 9 drops of essential oils. We've got 4 essential oils. That doesn't make for good math, but you can just choose like 2 of each and choose your favorite one to have 1 extra. Gina, hi! Hi! Yay! Oh, how nice to see all these people showing up. What was I saying? Choose a third one that is your favorite in there.
So was the original formula all 4?
Mm-hmm. It was all 4, equal amounts of all 4. In a 80% jojoba, 20% castor. If you want to put some, 20% grapeseed. If you want to throw some of the castor oil in there, we have Jamaican black castor oil here. The difference between black castor oil and regular castor oil, black castor oil has been heated, and it's some of the ash in there that causes it to turn black. I'm not clear on the change in the chemistry of the black castor oil versus regular castor oil and why that heating is there. Obviously, there's a reason. We do know that the black castor oil is not to be used internally. Castor oil can be used internally or topically. It's fine. Of course, we want to be aware that if you take it internally, it's a strong laxative. And so, yeah, use that mindfully. Yeah, but to your benefit. All right. Any questions? Yes.
So is time the one that most people are sensitive to? Or-
Yes. Yeah. Of all of these, time is going to be the one that's going to cause the most reactivity and the most sensitivity. So yeah, if you want to make a formula that is going to be more gentle, I would keep that time definitely down. You're already choosing the milder time. And then maybe just, bump up some lavender, because of all of those oils, lavender is the most calm. You can also drop it down to a 1% dilution. You can just say, fine, 2% is fine. I just want to do 1%, in which case I'm going to do 4, 5 drops. Yeah.
Is there any particular one that's for the hair growth or?
Rosemary. Rosemary would be specifically for that. So the percentage of castor oil, that would be also kind of personal preference, right? So the higher just ignore them. The higher the concentration of the castor oil, the more viscous it's going to be. It's going to be thicker. It's going to be more goopy. Yeah, you can report it. You can do it, but otherwise, just ignore them. So great, great question, Sandra. The study applied the oil to the scalp at bedtime, left it in overnight, and then shampooed it out in the morning. Study ran for 40 days. And significant responses in alopecia, including there was one client that had lost the whole head of hair and he regrew all of his head of hair. My mom used to give us a teaspoon of castor oil. Me too. Me too. I hated it. So my mom used to line us all up. I'm the seventh of 7 kids. So my mom would line us all up and give us spoonfuls of castor oil and then a slice of orange, Empress. And so that the orange was supposed to like clean the castor oil out of our mouth. It did not work. Of course it didn't work. But yeah, exactly. Yes.
Why would she do that?
To clean us out. It was so we did it on Saturday night.
Oh God.
It was I think it was just something from her, like she never explained it to us and stopped, I think, pretty soon when we started to go on. No. But it was sort of cleaning you out for church in the morning kind of thing, for Sunday morning. Yeah. Something like that. Totally old school training. Exactly, Empress. Yes. Yeah. We knew not to tell Mama we were sick. Oh, yes. We've all been through that. I think it's right. Yeah. So castor oil, do it if you like, but be warned. So you're going to fill your bottle with, I have the jojoba oil. If you want to throw castor oil in there, you absolutely can. So the concentration, it really does depend. I would start with maybe a 10% concentration in here. That would be, 1.5, maybe 2 mils to start, ish, unless you wanted to do more. Heck, you could use all castor oil. It would just be very, very, very viscous, but that would be fine because here we're not relying on the castor oil to be a solvent. It is a carrier, right? And so the caveats that I had earlier about not being able to use castor if we were infusing the oils don't apply here. We're not infusing the oils. The oils are a carrier for the essential oils. And so you could totally use 100% castor oil in here. You would not get the benefits of that jojoba oil, and that is significant. It would also be really thick and goopy and sticky, and I would hate the idea of putting castor oil into my scalp, just because that would be a bitch to clean out. But you absolutely could. Could the formula be applied in the morning and washed out in the evening? Absolutely. I think kind of the takeaway was to leave it on the tissue for a longer period of time. But if it works better for you. Also, some people are not really loving the idea of an oil on their scalp kind of through the day because it can make the hair look oily. It doesn't for everyone, and if that doesn't bother you or if that's not your hair type, then sure, absolutely put it into your hair and then leave it during the day. Yeah, whatever works for you. But leaving it on for at least a couple of hours application would be the primary thing. So add your essential oils first so that you can fill all your essential oils in here. Then you're going to top it off with a jojoba and or castor oil if you want to. We have the droppers for the essential oils right here. We have the essential oils and our jojoba and our castor oil and our bottles, and you can go to town with that. And then any planet a day you're home, yeah, absolutely, yes. Or just, throw something over your head or put a hat on. I hope that you don't mind getting all goopy and greasy. What is a good replacement for the cedar wood, especially if using whole plants to infuse the oil? So we have cedar leaves. There's a lot of cedar relative trees or bushes. Probably. Abahita, remind me where you are. Are you in the Southwest? Yeah, I assume Southwest because Abahita. I don't know. Where are you? where you locate it, it's very likely you have a cedar growing around you and you could get the leaves. What I love doing, we have a cedar that grows up in our mountains. Is Calicedrus a true cedar? It feels like that. The incense cedar.
Yeah,
I think it's a
true cedar.
yeah. It smells like a true cedar. So we have a tree called incense cedar in our mountains, abundant, and it is the most delicious smelling cedar in the world. It's so good. That's why it's called incense cedar. It's yummy, yummy, yummy. So I love. I'll harvest the leaves of that and use that as the infused oil. So anything you have, even I would say even if you have, we have in the high altitude mountains of Oaxaca, Mexico, you have lots of pine and oak. The eastern red cedar, totally. The thujas, yes, you can do so. The western red cedar or the eastern, it's Thuja occidentalis and Thuja plicata, I think are the two species. Yeah, both of the thujas would be great. Abejita, you probably have juniper up there. I'll bet you have juniper. You have to have juniper up there because that would be a really good, that would be, your kind of local cedar, cedar version. Yeah. You could also just leave it out or think of other, so you could use pine, right? So pine is also kind of aromatic, stimulating. What we're looking at is things that are stimulating and aromatic and kind of moving energy. Pine absolutely does that. So you could absolutely use pine needles, right? That would be a great thing too, especially since you have abundance. Oak, no. Oak would be completely different chemistry and wouldn't really love extraction into oil. But pine or juniper would be good. Any other questions for y'all? Do you have juniper there, Abejita? I do tend to think of it as being a high altitude plant. But I've not been in the Oaxaca region, so my understanding of that is like going into New Mexico and Colorado and places like that, where you just see so much of it right there, right? It's just all over the place there. It's so gorgeous, those old juniper forests. Okay, if there's no questions, then I will let you all go. I will see you next week. I'm not sure actually. It has those blueberries. That's right, yeah, blueberries, and it has two different types of foliage. There's the juvenile foliage and the mature foliage. So you want to kind of look at the difference between the two foliage. It can be a little bit confusing, but yeah, you look for those blueberries and crush the blueberries, and they smell like gin. That's how you know. Thanks for your time, and oh yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for showing up. Good to see you all. Terry, if you're still there, so good to see you. Gina, if you're still there, so good to see you. And of course, all the rest of y'all, but you're here all the time, so I don't have to be nice to you. You're welcome, Abejita. Good to see you. See you all next week, okay? Bye-bye. I'm so glad you did too, Terry. Love you. Mwah. Love you all. Bye-bye.